Peacemaker Season 2 shatters continuity, rebuilds it, and opens the doors to the future of the DCU. Stick around, we're breaking down what it all means and exploring all the twists you did not see coming.
You ready for the next adventure, pal?
Peacemaker Season 2 ended with plenty of answers and plenty of questions. It was a long road to get there, but nearly all the main characters reached some sort of emotional closure. Ads finally realized that her strained relationship with Kia was unsustainable. Chris and Harcourt found a few brief moments of bliss. Flag got his revenge on Chris for killing Rick Jr., which we guess was nice for him, and Adrian found someone to talk about spiders with. Even Economos got someone to laugh at a joke, which is a huge win for him. But this story is obviously far from over. In fact, it's nothing less than a giant cliffhanger. When the credits roll, Chris is stranded on an empty planet with no way home. Flag is knee-deep in a far-reaching scheme to get rid of all the metahumans on Earth, agreeing to a tenuous partnership with Lex Luthor to make it happen. And let's not forget that Keith, aka Captain Triumph, is still out there in Nazi world with a grudge against our world's Peacemaker for getting his brother and dad killed. James Gunn always said that the Peacemaker Season 2 finale would open the door for the future of the DCU, but all the ways that's happening aren't entirely clear. Here's a deeper look at how it's all going to come together. That planet where Chris ends up trapped at the end of the season is repeatedly referred to as Salvation, and Rick Flag Sr. has big plans for it.
Is removing dangerous individuals from our planet forever.
He was willing to sacrifice a lot to find it. His agents investigate a near-endless series of doorways to other dimensions full of terror tales, and some die to find what seems to be a pretty basic and seemingly uninhabited planet. While Harcourt thinks the end goal is to seek out resources to help people on Earth, Flag's got a different idea. Use it as a prison for metahumans. Peacemaker, though he's just a very beefy, regular guy without his helmet, is the first test case.
But a little due diligence is required. See what effect this dimension has on the human body.
Chris learns from the sounds he hears that it's not as empty as first thought. There's a comic series from 2007 that gives some idea of what's coming. The 7-issue miniseries Salvation Run has essentially the same premise, though the prison planet isn't in a different dimension. It's Cygnus 4019, which turns out not to be the peaceful planet Amanda Waller and her underlings think it is either. It's a training ground for the armies of Apocalypse, who are loyal to Darkseid. The series covers a lot of infighting among the imprisoned supervillains who have been sent there, and there are dozens of them. It takes the leadership of Lex Luthor, among others, to devise a way to escape just as a group of parademons from Apocalypse swoop in for an attack. Luthor may not end up in the DCU version of Salvation, given that he's now best buds with Flag, but a big throwdown there seems imminent. The 11th Street kids spent most of their time in Season 2 trying to find a way back together, and Episode 8 sees all their separate story threads finally merge again. By the end of the episode, they're operating under a new name, Checkmate. Where did the name come from? Well, the show doesn't really offer an in-universe answer to that, but in DC Comics, it comes from a spy organization that has come in a few different flavors over the years. Checkmate has a long comics history. With so many iterations, it's impossible to know what's going to come out of it in the DCU. Its predecessor, the agency, was established by Amanda Waller. At one point, Sasha Bordeaux served as the Black Queen of the organization. Get it? Black Queen, because everything in Checkmate is based on chess? Mr. Terrific has been a member, and the OMAC Project, which was part of the lead-up to Infinite Crisis, positioned Maxwell Lord, played by Sean Gunn in the DCU, as one of the head honchos who's trying to kill all the metahumans. So, will this version of Checkmate resemble the intricately organized comics versions? It's hard to say just yet. In Peacemaker, they seemed to set it up with the exact opposite intention, getting out from under the shadow of Waller and Argus and all the clandestine spy groups. And while the comics Checkmate was incredibly secretive and full of internal power struggles, this one has announced itself with a sign on the building like it's a Big Belly Burger. Speaking of, just to digress for a second, they sell rounds of shots at Big Belly Burger? That may have been the biggest surprise in the whole finale. Peacemaker resides in some pretty weird territory in terms of its canon. It's a spin-off of 2021's The Suicide Squad, which was solidly part of the DC Extended Universe. The first season, which debuted back in 2022, also predates the James Gunn-led reboot of the DCU. So one of the most interesting parts of the second season is the recap of the first. It changes some plot elements completely and leaves out some others. The most noticeable change is that the DCEU Justice League appearance from the first season
Go another fish, asshole!
has been retconned to have the Justice Gang from Superman show up instead.
It's late, you heads.
That also seemed to indicate that a lot of Peacemaker's first season one-liners about various DC heroes don't count anymore either, like, who knows what this universe's Batman has and hasn't done?
Riddle me this, how many people you think Batman's indirectly murdered by being too much of a candy ass not to kill these fools who clearly need to be smoked once and for all?
The recap actually adds in a new one-liner about Peacemaker throwing up on Green Lantern.
One time I puked all over Green Lantern. I got seasick from flying on the green magic carpet. Weird thing is he liked it.
The recap keeps it pretty vague in terms of which details of the first season's plot are still canon. Chris accidentally killed his brother Keith as a kid, then killed his dad on purpose as an adult. Those are still there, and the gang stopped an alien invasion to save the world, but the specifics of the invasion are left unstated other than the name Project Butterfly. More on that in a sec. Leota Adebayo is still Amanda Waller's daughter. Though Waller is only discussed, not shown in the recap, Viola Davis has already returned as the character in Creature Commandos. Peacemaker also still killed Rick Flag Jr. on the mission to Cordo Maltese in the Suicide Squad. The whole Grizzly incident is a key plot point in Season 2, with it motivating Rick Flag Sr.'s revenge campaign against Peacemaker. It causes some relationship issues between Chris and Harcourt too. Joel Kinnaman even returns for some flashbacks and to play an awkward alternate universe version of Old Jr.
Yeah, I was just asking him what he's doing here, if he's got like something official or something I should be a part of.
So considering that Peacemaker Season 2 launches us chin first into the greater DCU, we need to stick with this point just a little bit longer. What exactly is carrying over as canon from Gunn's pre-Gunn DCU-DCEU projects? The answer is as simple as a comic book plotline metaphorically merging with the real world. Peacemaker Season 1 exists in sort of a pocket dimension of potential reality, if you want to think about it that way. If you want to argue with your friends right now that yes, the 11th Street Kids defeated a race of extraterrestrial butterflies turning politicians into meat puppets, no, you'd be wrong. Because nobody in the current DCU has mentioned it yet. They did something with aliens, but the specifics are still the Schrodinger's cat of pop culture. But if in Season 3, Vigilante's throwing knives mid-backflip and casually says, hey, you guys, remember that alien bug we kept in a pickle jar and that possessed gorilla and then we all killed a weird cow? Then those details leave the pocket dimension of potential and solidify in reality, and only then. Yeah? Nope. Here's a simpler explanation.
Anything that we show in the previously seen on Peacemaker then becomes canon. Anything that they talk about having happened in the old world.
In other words, canon is whatever Gunn wants it to be at any given time. Guess we could have just said that from the start. Anyway, moving on. A somewhat minor element of the first season of Peacemaker that becomes a major part of Season 2 is Augie Smith's quantum unfolding storage area, the interdimensional space where Peacemaker stores his helmets and other equipment. The doorway to the storage area seems totally safe and stable. Chris is quite casual about it, even going in there in his undies. That was totally fine in the DCEU, but in the DCU, it kind of creates a problem. In Superman, the interdimensional portal generators that Lex Luthor uses are very unstable. One creates a dimensional rift that nearly destroys Metropolis, after all. Lex's portal guy, Sidney Happerson, even explains,
You can never keep it open for more than a few minutes without it collecting dimensional detritus and eventually collapsing.
Peacemaker Season 2 has to make these two seemingly conflicting things work, and it does so by making Augie's portal technology itself come from another dimension. It's the work of otherworldly imps who have been poking around on Earth. Augie and his sons encountered one of those imps on a hunting trip, killed him, and stole his portal generator. Luthor may be a smart guy, but he's got nothing on those imps when it comes to portal making. It's pretty well established that Peacemaker isn't the smartest guy.
Where do you get this nonsense?
Google.
Well, it's not true.
You know more than Google?
But Season 2 might make him a little too stupid. For a guy who claims to have a black best friend in Adebayo, he is completely blind to the fact that there are no people of color living and working on the Nazi-led alternate Earth where he starts residing. Sure, he's highly motivated to live in a world where his dad and brothers are still alive, but he'd have to notice something, right? Even if it's just a sense that things aren't totally right. It's such a clear character issue that the show works overtime to try to wave it away. First, Gunn makes a heightened joke out of just how oblivious Chris is.
Or the giant mural of Hitler?
God, I missed that.
Then, in a complete tonal shift, Ads defends Chris, talking about what a good guy he is at heart and making excuses for him.
I didn't say he was smart. I'm sure he didn't even notice.
Ultimately, the plot of the season just doesn't really work if Peacemaker notices that the Nazi world is a Nazi world, so he just misses it. But in the process, it ends up making Peacemaker into basically Homer Simpson.
Why didn't someone tell me? Oh, I've been making an idiot out of myself.
The concept of an alternate Earth where the Nazis won World War II isn't entirely original, of course. Author Philip K. Dick explored one in his 1962 novel The Man in the High Castle, and it's a staple of sci-fi premises that feature alternate realities. Rick and Morty has even made fun of it.
Stop asking questions, stop doing meta-commentary, just have fun.
That said, it's important to point out that Peacemaker isn't just digging into a common trope. It's specifically mining DC Comics history, alternate history. You know what we mean. Not long into the Silver Age, DC was pretty rapidly expanding its multiverse. Earth 2 was where the Golden Age versions of the company's superheroes lived. Earth 3 was where all the alignments were flipped. Heroes were villains and vice versa. And in 1973, a little over a decade after The Man in the High Castle, DC introduced Earth X, the one where the Nazis won, in Justice League of America number 107. In that reality, President Franklin Roosevelt died in 1944 instead of 1945, which enabled the Germans to develop nuclear weapons concurrent to the US. As a result, the war went on until 1968, when the Nazis won after developing mind control technology. By the time the Earth 1 Justice League arrived in 1973, a computer brain had taken over basically all government functions. Peacemaker just shows a small slice of racially segregated life on Earth X. The only superheroes there we see being honored are the top trio, Peacemaker's team with his dad, the Blue Dragon, and his brother, Captain Triumph. In comics continuity, there were actually no superheroes at all from Earth X. It's heavily implied that the ongoing war either killed them all or they simply never became heroes. But Earth X does have a superhero team. They're just not from there. Uncle Sam, who is the actual Uncle Sam from the wartime recruitment posters, the Spirit of America, brought a bunch of other heroes called the Freedom Fighters there from Earth 2 to fight off the Nazi threat. Their ranks include the Human Bomb, who swallowed some radioactive material to keep it away from the Nazis, Doll Man, who is 6 inches tall, the Ray, who glows, Phantom Lady, who can become intangible, and Black Condor, who, can fly. There have been other heroes in their ranks, but that's the original core team. So is there a version of the Freedom Fighters on the DCU's Earth X? Maybe, but we haven't caught a whiff of them yet. The group that sort of serves the same purpose as the Freedom Fighters would on Peacemaker's Earth X is called the Sons of Liberty. While they're initially depicted as a sort of separatist terrorist group, it becomes clear that they're actually fighting against Nazi control of the world. That universe's vigilante is a member.
Peacemaker, Christopher Smith!
Yeah.
He's my arch enemy. He is the reason I joined the Sons of Liberty in the first place.
Calling the group the Sons of Liberty seems like an intentional red herring on Gunn's part, given their comics origin. They're a bit of a comics deep cut to begin with. They first appeared in 1991's Superman number 53 as a right-wing militia looking to overthrow the government. They believed America had strayed too far from the founders' values. In the meantime, they were also doing business with countries run by dictators. They funded their own superhero, Agent Liberty, who clashed with Superman. Agent Liberty eventually came to believe that the Sons had gone too far in their cause and turned against them. After the DC Universe got rebooted with the New 52 in 2011, the Sons of Liberty have appeared again a few more times as an explicitly neo-Nazi terrorist organization. Like every other alternate universe DC had, Earth X got wiped away in 1985's Crisis on Infinite Earths. But DC has restored its multiverse in various ways in the decade since, and the Earth X concept has returned in various ways too. The 2005 event, Infinite Crisis, restored a version of the multiverse that had 52 different realities, and the follow-up series titled simply 52 revealed in its final issue that Earth 10 was the one where Uncle Sam was fighting the good fight against victorious Nazis. It didn't get explored a ton, only appearing in 5 comics before the multiverse got rebooted again in 2011. But it did include a fascist version of the Justice League, the JL Axis. A reworked version of Earth 10 appears in 2015's The Multiversity Mastermen by Grant Morrison and Jim Lee. In that reality, Kal-El landed in Germany instead of Kansas, giving the Nazis the upper hand to win the war. He goes by the name Overman and leads yet another Nazi version of the Justice League. They're tormented by Uncle Sam and the Freedom Fighters. That version of the universe has come back a few times, particularly in a 12-issue Freedom Fighters series from 2019. But the original Earth X has also been restored to the multiverse thanks to the Convergence event from 2015. Sasha Bordeaux, a ruthless cyborg Argus agent, is a pretty threatening new antagonist in Season 2. After all, she's the one who nearly shoots Peacemaker in the head.
I have a clear shot, but it's fatal. 0.002% chance of error.
Of course, she turns that around by the end and helps Chris and his buds start Checkmate. Sasha comes straight out of the comics, but as it often is, her comics history is far more complicated. She first appeared in Detective Comics number 751 in 2000, serving as Bruce Wayne's bodyguard. Sasha eventually discovers that Bruce is Batman, and he trains her to be a crime fighter. Both she and Bruce get framed for murder. While in prison, she's severely injured. Checkmate saves her life, but only in exchange for her coming to work for them. Shockingly, this is not when Sasha becomes a cyborg. That happens later when she's impaled by an OMAC robot in the lead up to Infinite Crisis. That attack is what makes her part cybernetic. That's definitely more confusing than the show's explanation, which is that the government made her a cyborg after a plane crash. When the Eagle Hunter Red St. Wild popped up on Peacemaker, you might have wondered, who's that guy in the comics? And the answer is nobody. He's an original character, even though he definitely seems like he came from comics given his goofy gimmick and indigenous garb despite being white. The show even makes jokes about it as if he were some obscure comics D-lister from the Silver Age.
Well, you said I didn't have to work with Captain Cultural Appropriation.
There's at least some indication that it was tough to get a handle on the character of St. Wild on set. Gunn admitted on the official podcast that he had to be recast with Michael Rooker.
He was another actor, was a very talented actor, great guy. It just didn't work out for various reasons.
All that said, there may be one thing comics fans can latch onto with St. Wild. It could be a stretch, but his first name Red is possibly a reference to The Red, which was first introduced in Animal Man #1 by Grant Morrison and Chaz Truog. The Red is a metaphysical space from which all heroes who have animal powers get their abilities. If St. Wild somehow survived that attack from the Primeagle, Eagly, and all his pals that made him pretty red, maybe that'll get explored. It's time to talk about Fleury. Is he just a regular run-of-the-mill guy with bird blindness, or is there something else going on here? Is Fleury Martian Manhunter? This became one of the biggest fan theories while Season 2 was in progress. And now that the season is over, we still don't have an answer. Fleury actually being Martian Manhunter makes a lot of sense based on what we've seen. His backstory is pretty much a mystery, and he doesn't have a handle on anything you might call normal human interaction. John Jones in the comics integrated into human society a lot better, but with Gunn at the typewriter, a Martian in disguise could easily say stuff like,
"Hey, how am I supposed to know Munchkin science, man?"
Or,
"What's the deal with the parrot?"
And then there's the fact that he gives everyone nicknames based purely on physical traits, as if that's his only way of differentiating between humans.
Ginger Cool. You mind if I call you that? Ginger Cool?
Yeah, I really do.
It's pretty clear alien behavior if you ask us. Or, hear us out, maybe it's just a show full of off-the-wall jokes and Tim Meadows is a funny guy. We'd be fine with either outcome, and it's a fun fan theory to ponder regardless. Door 22, the first door Flag's recon team explores on screen, reveals a wondrous candy land full of psychotic gremlins that explode in a spray of glitter and blood when they're shot. If Earth X's Chris had been with them, he'd have known what was behind the door. That's the world from the story Keith and Augie were telling about imps in Season 2's first episode.
Chris was rummaging around the Munchkin dimension 8 doors down.
They're not Munchkins, Dad. They're imps.
So far, imps have been referenced in every DCU entry. Creature Commandos brought them up in passing, and it's what Superman called the big green and purple eyeball attacking Metropolis.
Well, that's just some dimensional imp.
In the comics, imps are residents of the fifth dimension, a parallel dimension that works a little differently than ours, and despite the easily stompable imps you see in Peacemaker, houses some seriously powerful characters. Whether imps become a more prominent part of the DCU or remain a running background joke remains to be seen, but they're definitely here, for better or worse. At some point, as you watch an entry in a massive interconnected cinematic universe of godlike heroes, you have to address the elephant in the room. Why don't those real superheroes step in when things get serious? It's a problem Marvel continues to run into with their umpteen shows and movies that scrape the comic book barrel for Phase 7 or whatever we're in. And it's a problem the DCU is already running into right out of the gate. Why isn't the Justice Gang helping Argus track down rogue portals when they know that tech like that can destroy the world? The answer is obviously that these are pieces of media. These heroes are actors. They have schedules and contracts and presumably lives. We know that. But we're supposed to separate our reality from the world we're watching. We need that separation. It's why we spend money on HBO subscriptions instead of responsibly trickling it into high-yield savings accounts to bank against an uncertain future. So the in-story answer is always either the threat isn't big enough to warrant the attention of the real heroes, or, more commonly, they're busy. Peacemaker Season 1 dealt with some pretty huge alien stakes, then hand-waved it away by having the the Justice Gang show up at the end, late to the party. Peacemaker Season 2 went the low-stakes route for the most part, but still made sure to clarify that none of it was even a blip on the radar of the big guys.
You heard of Peacemaker?
Meta?
No. Just a costume vigilante.
And who gives a Being goofy is no threat.
Is that enough for audiences? We mean, apparently it is. It's worked so far. Peacemaker certainly isn't the first offshoot show about ragtag vigilantes that takes a moment to reference the reason its universe's A-list heroes are staying out of their story. And unless David Cornsweet is locked into some inhuman contractual obligation to appear in literally everything, it won't be the last time Superman is suspiciously unavailable as the world teeters on the brink of destruction. That's just the way these things work, as much as it may suck.
Now, we'll spend 5 years and $500 million making it, but in the end, know what will make fans like you like it? A miracle.